Inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Let's go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider Television. As you just heard, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. We always appreciate them with their beautiful tumblers. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, whether it's in Hoover, Atlanta, Dallas next year, or this year, Nashville, SEC Media Days signals the unofficial start of the college football season. And last week, that was the case up in Music City. And on Wednesday, head coach Nick Saban was joined by three of his top players in Nashville: junior defensive back Kool-Aid McKinstry, junior edge rusher Dallas Turner, and junior offensive lineman J.C. Latham. All juniors, but all expected to go on to the NFL. So if they're going to get to media days, you better take them now before they're gone. And they were at the podium. And, of course, all that goes with SEC Media Days, predictions. I voted, Rodney. I did vote for Alabama in the West, and the Tide edged LSU in the West. Georgia was a overwhelming pick in the East, and then Georgia was the pick to win the SEC championship over Alabama. LSU picked second in the West. Tennessee picked second in the East. Now, Rodney, I want to get your thoughts on this in just a moment. We talked about it on the radio Monday morning. But all SEC teams, and listen, I know these are just the media's opinions, but I do think it's the perception of how talented programs are. We know in the past we expect Alabama to have 5 or 6 guys on first team offense and defense. Not this year. Alabama had 1 player on the SEC first team offense, that was J.C. Latham, 2 players on the SEC defense, Dallas Turner and Kool-Aid McKinstry. To give you some context, LSU had 3 on the first team offense, 3 on the first team defense, and Georgia had 6 on the defense and 5 on the offense, 11 first teamers. Alabama did have 3 first teamers on the special teams. Kicker Will Reichard, snapper Nealon Hibbett, and Kool-Aid McKinstry was also the return specialist. But Rodney, again, 11 first teamers for Georgia, 6 for LSU, just 3 for Alabama. Does that mean anything?
I don't think it means anything. I do think this, in terms of how this season's going to play out, but I do think when you look at what Georgia, they've won back-to-back national championships. Obviously, they're kind of in the position that Alabama's been familiar in terms of the preseason favorite, winning national championships, having 11 and 12 players on all SEC team preseason, that type of thing, even postseason. So I think right now, when you look at it, you can understand why people say heading into this season, Georgia is now the standard.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, not just about the overall SEC, because clearly Alabama's the hunter when it comes to Georgia, but even though Alabama was picked to finish ahead of LSU, as we said, LSU was 6 first-team preseason all-SEC team members, Alabama just with 3 in offense and defense. We did mention the special teams guys. You think Alabama, even though they were picked ahead of LSU, with LSU beating them last year, is kind of hunting LSU? Maybe the roles are reversed, even though Alabama's picked to finish the West. You kind of get the sense that maybe Alabama's still the underdog.
I think when you look at Alabama, they're hunting everybody, to be honest with you. I think the way the season played out last year, coming into that year with everyone saying Alabama's the favorite to win the national championship after falling short in 2021, look, I think they have a lot to kind of prove, if you will. And it's kind of an unusual situation. But, Gary, it's not bad. It's not bad to go into a season, finally, kind of people doubting you.
And not making the playoff last year when you had Bryce Young at quarterback. And now this year you've got 3 candidates, and we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Obviously, I think that has a lot to do with the perception that Alabama has slipped. A lot of chatter about the quarterback last week in Nashville. What's your feeling? I mean, we're just a couple of weeks away from fall camp now. Any thoughts on how you think this competition will play out?
I think it's really difficult to predict. Again, I know a lot of people want someone to make those predictions, but again, I think all 3 guys have an opportunity. They're extremely talented, all 3 of them, in terms of potential. They all have tools, and I think it's just going to be interesting to see which guy, as Nick Saban always says, which guy's going to take the bull by the horns, and I think that obviously we'll start to find out when August camp begins.
Regardless of who the quarterback is, and we've been touching on this, the offense figures to look different under Tommy Rees, the first-year coordinator who came over from Notre Dame. The offensive line, I think there's been not any statements made in regards to they're going to have to be bigger and stronger and more physical, but I think that's the feeling, is that Alabama's going to get back to the run game heavily, mix in the play action pass, but that this isn't going to be a throw it first type of offense the way we've seen the last few years.
I think they're going to try to move back towards 2020 where you had that balance. You had obviously Najee Harris was a 1,500-yard rusher. You probably won't have a guy because they have so many high-quality running backs, I think. You'll probably see it more by committee. But, yeah, you want to dominate up front. I think that's what they want to get back to with Eric Wolford and that offensive line. And, again, take a little bit of pressure off of the young quarterback that really doesn't have the experience. So I think if Alabama can get through Texas, get through the first part of the season, the road game at Texas A&M, if they get through that undefeated, watch out, because I think down the stretch they could be really good.
And real quick, defensively, we always say it starts up front with the defensive line. Georgia and LSU dominated the first-team All-SEC defensive line. Alabama had Dallas Turner, an edge rusher, outside linebacker, if you will, and Quillian McKinstry, a cornerback. No defensive lineman from Alabama, first-team All-SEC in the preseason. We're not used to that.
No, but look, I think when you look at what Alabama has potentially, Jaheim Otis, I think he can be a dominant interior player. I think Justin Eboigbe was off to a great start last year until his injury. I think Tim Smith, he's kind of an enigma. Because you look at him and you say, okay, this guy's got all this ability, looked really good as a freshman, and he's kind of leveled off. This might be Tim Smith's year.
All right, let's move on to Coach Talk. Last week, as we mentioned at SEC Media Days, Nick Saban spoke on and gave comments on his new offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees. And he had praise for Rees. And he was asked about the impact that Rees will have on the Crimson Tide offense in 2023.
Tommy Rees is one of the brightest young guys I've seen for a long time in this business, so he's been a great addition and brought a lot of positives to the offensive side of the ball in terms of his ideas and how he relates to players, how he presents to players. His energy and enthusiasm on the field has been contagious, and I think I see a great trust in our players with Tommy and what he tries to do from a leadership standpoint on offense.
And Rodney Rees is a guy who comes in with a lot of expectations, and he got praise not just from Nick Saban, but from Clark Lee of Vanderbilt, Brian Kelly at LSU, of course, who coached with him, and he played quarterback for Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. Rod, I do want to ask you, when you look at this Alabama run of offensive coordinators, because they've turned over a lot. It might be, haven't talked much about this, but it might be the best run of offensive coordinators in the history of college football for one program.
It's certainly been a really good one. But look, Gary, what about the weapons they've had? It's been incredible, the players that they've had. You look at Sark, he had a Heisman Trophy winning receiver. He had Jalen Waddle, another first-round receiver. He had Mac Jones, a first-round quarterback. And you could go on down the list of the players that they've had. And you look at Tommy Rees, I think he's got to be thinking to himself, hey, I came from Notre Dame. It's a really good program, but they don't have those kind of players at Notre Dame that I think they have here now. And again, when you look at it, you look at the offensive line, you look at the running backs, you look at the potential at wide receiver that Alabama has, and the tight ends now. I think they're going to be an improved room. When you look at all of those tools, all of the weapons that they have, I think you can look at the quarterback and say, hey, this is going to make it a lot easier on him.
Kevin Steele's back on defense. You would think with Rees on offense that at some point he's going to be moving on, becoming head coach. But you think this is the final stop for Kevin Steele?
Well, it certainly could be when you look at his age. What is he, 64, 65, somewhere in there? I think it could be. And, I think the thing about Kevin Steele is this, is a lot of people remember that Clemson when he was the defense coordinator that gave up, 70 points in the bowl.
Virginia in the Orange Bowl, yeah.
Look, he's come a long way. And I think where you look at him now, I think he's one of the top defensive coordinators. And I think certainly for what Alabama needed, he was the right guy.
Yeah, toughness seems to be the theme on both sides of the football for Alabama in 2023. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama looks to keep one of the state's best high school players at home, but it might not be easy. More on Chilton County's DeMarcus Riddick coming up next. And Nick Saban continues his recruiting tear in the last months of the summer. See who else that Alabama is dialed in on and received commitments from this past week. And coming up, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets if you want to tweet at us. The phone number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can Email us at the address on your screen or even tweet at us. Use that hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV.
Since my recruiting journey started, I knew where I wanted to get to, and I knew what I had to do in order to get there. I just wanted to make sure that I had the tools and the right mindset and the right work ethic to get where I needed to get to. So upon getting the offer, a continuous hours and days, and then finally I decided that this is where I needed to be.
And welcome back to TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. And it was Friday afternoon when William Sanders of Brookwood High School here in Tuscaloosa County made his commitment to the University of Alabama. Sanders picked the Crimson Tide, and it was really no surprise over his other finalists, LSU and Mississippi State. Rodney, you said several times on TITV that you think he's one of the most impressive interior offensive linemen that you've seen in the country. 6'3", 295. I said on my radio show with you that he's just a punishing run blocker. And the fact that he plays at a school that hasn't had a lot of football success, you think maybe has worked against him as far as the recruiting services are concerned, but you feel like by the end of the year he's going to be a top 100 national prospect.
No, I think he really is. I think consensus, I think everyone will have him in the top 100, maybe top 75. I mean, I really think when you look at him, all the tools that he has, the way he moves, Gary, he pulls really well. I mean, he can move quite well for a 295-pounder, but the power. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a guy
who puts, here leading. Boom,
yeah.
There goes the guy on the back.
I mean, he puts more defenders on the ground than I think any high school offensive lineman I've seen. Certainly, he's extremely powerful. He's a guy that I think not only that, I think he's got the right mindset. He's the right kind of kid. He's a hard worker. I think this is a really big pickup for Alabama.
Yeah, and he gives Alabama 15 commits now in the class of 2024. So, again, after kind of a slow start numbers-wise, Alabama's really picked it up. Yeah,
and, again, I think the real interesting thing is going to be how do they finish? Because, you know, look, it's really competitive right now. And Alabama, as you mentioned, is a top 5 class according to some. But how high will they go?
And, Rod, Alabama continues on building the 2024 class, but working on the 2025 class, too. 5 commits now in 2025, the latest coming over the weekend. 5-star wide receiver Jamie French from Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida. This is a guy who's a top 20 player in the entire class and arguably the top wide receiver in the class of 2025.
I think Alabama right now has the top 2 wide receivers in the 2025 class committed. Jamie French, as you see here, he's kind of a Calvin Ridley type player. That's a comparison that's been made, and I think it's really fair. Great route runner. I think when you look at Ryan Williams out of Saraland, what a difference maker. I mean, so these 2 guys, you talk about, people say, and again, you hate to make those comparisons, Gary, but you talk about those high-quality receivers Alabama's had. These 2 guys kind of fit in that mold.
All right, and then tomorrow afternoon, a guy who some feel is the top player in the state of Alabama, DeMarcus Riddick, 4 o'clock down in Clinton. The Chilton County standout is going to make his, I guess, his final decision because he's committed to Georgia and has been since last November. This is a guy that's rangy, athletic, physical, 6'2", 215 pounds. But he is going to re-announce, and the feeling is this time it's either going to be Alabama or Auburn.
You know, I put him in my Firecracker 5 on July 4th. I really thought at that time that Alabama kind of had the edge to flip him. Right now, I mean, it kind of, the vibes seem to be more favorable to Auburn. You know, again, he's an outstanding talent. He's a guy that plays a lot of different positions, projected as a linebacker. You know, some people, Gary, have him the #1 inside linebacker in this class.
So what's your gut feeling right now?
Right now, the vibes seem to be Auburn.
All right, we'll find out tomorrow afternoon. And, Rodney, real quickly, too, want to mention Alabama picking up a commitment from Anderson Green, a punter from Northridge High School here in Tuscaloosa, can also kick, and he's a holder. And, again, we know how important special teams are. This is another local prospect that's going to roll with the Tide.
Yeah, and a guy that I think has been really impressive at camps, whether it's been at Alabama or various camps that he's participated in for kickers. He's a guy that ranks one of the top kickers in the country.
All right, you know all these guys want to get to the NFL, right? And Alabama has more players in the NFL than any other school, and they're making bank. The latest, Dallas Cowboys cornerback Trevon Diggs has finalized an agreement with the Cowboys. 5 years, $97 million. That includes a signing bonus of $21.25 million. And, Rodney, with incentives, this could be over a $100 million deal. This is a guy who started out as a wide receiver at Alabama, was moved to corner, was a second-round pick. But when you can turn the ball over for your offense, and he's got 17 interceptions since he came in the league, including 11 in 2001. Let's just be honest with you. Let's just be honest about it. You see him right here against Mac Jones and the Patriots, pick 6. When you can intercept the football, you're going to get paid.
Yeah, you know, what's funny about this story, Gary, is, of course, his brother, Trevon Diggs, the great receiver. And when Nick Saban told Trevon, hey, I'm moving you from wide receiver to corner, he breaks down and starts crying. Now, he's not crying over this $97 million contract.
He's a $100 million man. All right, still to come on TITV, Rob Vaughn continues to put together his baseball roster here at the Capstone for next spring. He landed another big-time commitment out of the portal. And we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. The phone number again, 205-348-9882. Go ahead and give us a call. We'll hear from you next right here on TITV. New Crimson Tide head baseball coach Rob Vaughn reeled in a big fish from the portal. Bobby Alcock, 2023 Big South Pitcher of the Year, announced he's transferring to the Capstone. He was really good at Gardner-Webb, 3.27 ERA, 185 strikeouts, 9-6 record this past season. Always looking for pitching, and Alabama, of course, looking for position players too. They've done a good job, the new coaching staff has, of using the portal. Welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. We're going to get out on the phone lines and welcome in John from over in Cordova. Hey, John.
Yeah, hey, y'all doing good?
Doing well.
My question is, do y'all think the outcome of that game would determine the rest of the season, a win or a lose? And how do you think that game would go?
All right, you're talking about Alabama, Texas. I think Alabama's going to win the football game. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm like everybody else. I think Steve Sarkisian has got a team that, you know, potentially is a playoff team. But it's going to be here. It's going to be at night. It's the second week of the season. I think Alabama's got something for them. Win or lose, though, no, I don't think it impacts the outcome of the season because Alabama's season is going to be dictated ultimately by what it does in the Southeastern Conference.
You know, I think when you look at this game, you know, obviously Texas has a lot of players returning. You look at the quarterback, you look at the wide receivers. They've got a really good offensive line, a lot of defensive players. I think they catch Alabama at a really, really good time because they catch Alabama early. I think the transition with the coordinators, I think, too, the quarterback, you don't have an experienced quarterback at Alabama. So I do think that plays into Texas' hands. But having them here, having them at night, right now I favor Alabama.
It's going to be a big game, though, John. It will be a big game. But I don't think, win or lose, Alabama's season is going to be dictated by what it does in the SEC. All right, let's get to an email, and it's our email question of the day brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to your heating and air conditioning needs, we treat your family like our family. How big is the return of place kicker Will Reichard from Marvin, Tuscaloosa? Rodney, I think it's huge because initially it looked like he was going to leave, and Alabama could be in a lot of close games again. And you've got arguably the top kicker in the country now coming back, whereas had he left, you'd be looking for a place kicker. So I think it's big, and I think it could be the determining factor in several games this year.
Yeah, you know, obviously they recruited a really outstanding player out of Chicago, Connor Talty, who's coming in as a true freshman. But to have Will Reichard, the experience that he has, the many big kicks that he hit, how about the kick he hit at Auburn in overtime down there? I mean, that was clutch. I mean, he's hit so many big kicks throughout his career. You know, just having him and the consistency that he's had, it's really big.
Yeah, I just wish they could have got him a few yards closer in Knoxville.
Yeah. He
would have hit that one, you know, because of the way that played out. You know, if it's a 45-yarder instead of a 50-yarder, game probably over in the other direction. All right, still to come on TITV, which former Crimson Tide women's golfers stood up above the rest this past weekend? And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, there's the phone number, 205-348-9882. We want to hear from you on this edition of Tider Insider TV. What a weekend for Alabama women's golf at the Dow Great Lakes Bay Invitational. Cheyenne Knight and her partner, Elizabeth Sokol, won the event. It's Knight's second LPGA Tour title. They carded a 5 under 65 in the final round to capture the victory. Two other former Alabama women's golfers, Polly Mack and her partner, and Emma Talley and her partner, finished tied for third. So how is that for Bama representation on the PGA Tour? And welcome back into Tider Insider TV. Let's, hey, by the way, phone lines are open, I'm told. Drew tells me right now, if you want to get through, 205-348-WVUA. People always tell me they can't get through. Well, you can get through now. In the meantime, Rod, we got an email from Jamie in Haleyville who wants to know about the portal, and can Alabama still sign players out of the transfer portal this close to fall practice?
No, I think the portal, obviously, making that decision ended sometime in May. Obviously, you know, you had a 2-week period there after spring practice that, you know, players could do that. Tyler Buckner obviously came in, but no, not now.
All right, still no phone calls. I do want to have a follow-up with you on the portal. We've seen Hugh Freeze come in and give Hugh Freeze credit. They've hit the portal hard. Good timing that because, Rodney, it looks like at least there's a chance that the federal government could be involved. Joe Manchin, Tommy Tuberville, 2 U.S. senators, trying to put something in place that would regulate this portal a little bit. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, I really would. And let me say this too, Gary. You mentioned Tyler Buckner, but also, Trey Amos came in and Jalen Key, 2 other transfers in the portal. But you're right. I mean, there needs to be, we've talked about it. I mean, there needs to be some boundaries, some guidelines, everyone kind of playing on the same field, so to speak. Just right now, there's no regulations, and it's just kind of chaos. Yeah,
and I think we need something. I mean, obviously, NIL is here to stay. The portal is here to stay, but there's nothing wrong with having, some regulations. It's not just a free-for-all. All right, thanks for the phone calls and emails. Still to come on TITV. An Alabama alum had his high school number retired this past weekend. Find out who. And we'll be back on a beautiful, it's a hot evening, but it's beautiful here in the City of Champions. We're back with the final segment of TITV right after this.
It's just exciting. I know we've been planning this for a couple of years, and schedules haven't been able to get it done. But I'm excited to be able to come back and retire my number. There's only a couple of numbers that have been retired, so I know those people are special in this community. So it's exciting to be one of those special people.
Last Friday night, former Shades Valley High School standout Duron Payne, the former Alabama All-American nose tackle, had his number 94 high school jersey retired. It's going to hang on the wall. Of course, he's now a star for the Washington Commanders. And another one of these guys that signed a big contract recently. So what did he do? Paid it back. $100,000, Rodney, he donated to the Shades Valley Athletics Department. You think that's going to help them out?
It really is. Hey, they need to produce a couple of more of those to Alabama.
Yeah. You love to see it, though. You love to see these guys giving back. That was a special night. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Tider Insider TV. We'll have a replay tonight at 10:30. You can catch it anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with Nick Saban signing autographs last week at SEC Media Days in Nashville. Good night, everybody.